if you want to go back to them. And certainly those that excuse themselves for today. But rather you be here, try and be here, than not, because some interesting questions come up, which is so great. Okay. So, Godfrey, did you have anything to add? Okay, Jacob, tell us.
Well, I felt quite a bit indifferent. Yes, so at least I still need to practice more, and yeah, I'll get better.
You felt, yes, well, it was a very different question. So that doesn't help. And also I did say to cluster, to have 3 topics, to cluster 3 sections, and maybe they're actually 4. I'm not sure, but that wasn't the focus. The important thing to get back to tie it into the first exercise that we did, the first question, we want to make sure that your opening provides the necessary information, acknowledgement to your receiver, and that at the close there is some echo of what you said in the beginning and drawing the threads together. In this particular letter, drawing the threads together would have been very important. And we would also have been looking at a little bit of persuasive technique there, why it would be so good for the company as, you know, as a company of such standing to lead the way, so to speak. So there was leeway for you to do that. And then in the opening here would need to foreground quite a bit and also tell the chairperson where you were going. Is there anybody who would like to tell us what they did with their opening? I can ask people to just read out anything. This is a difficult one, and I know you would probably feel a little bit exposed by saying, by reading it out. But what was your opening sentence then?
Can I go, Billy?
Please, Manga. Please, Manga.
First of all, I was struggling with the persuasive part of this, because I saw this question, there's a lot of information, and it's like, whoa, I don't want to take them through like there has to be something outside of this is the presentation and these are the facts. There needs to be like a business case, and I was struggling with that. And so I always think of an introduction as something that's like short, but I struggle with that. So let me go.
Okay, yes. So in this case, this is a very good thing you're saying. Yeah, let's go. Just go for it.
Okay. So, that's my my start. My opening paragraph. I would like to thank you for the opportunity for me to attend the SU Global Summit. I found the presentation on the effects of global warming of interest to our company, based on how our success is tied to how well the world deals with the threat that is global warming. I would like to share some of the insights from the presentations Additionally, I would like to share the opportunity for our company and our clients in taking the role of of contributing in saving the planet. In this email below, I'll share some. Okay, no, I scratched that out. So sorry, can I read it again?
No, it's fine. You don't have to read it again. I think we've got that. But you don't have to say about the email. I mean, we're getting a good gist of it. It's really nice. Yeah.
So that's, and then I move on to the business case based on the facts down there. But that's a different paragraph.
Okay. All right. So that would be useful in this type of letter, because it was unsolicited. You would then in the next paragraph say that you're going to cover a couple of topics, and then the sequence in which you say you're going to cover these topics, they must follow exactly the way you've mentioned them in that paragraph in the subsequent paragraphs. So this is what we call parallel structure, okay, and development. So you are developing your argument from these 4 sections or 3 sections, and you also say, and it's the same sequence that you mentioned them in the first place. So thank you very much, Samanga. So it didn't sound too bad at all. So that's great. But I think in the beginning, thank you for the opportunity. He didn't give you any direct opportunity. So I think you can refer to the business, the company, as giving the opportunity. Okay. Because otherwise he's going to think, now, where did this come from? Who? I don't recall this person, etc. Okay, and also it's more appropriate. Sinazo, your question? You raised your hand?
Yes, hi Billy.
Hello.
So my question is, in a letter like this, right, where we are proposing something, so usually in a proposal you would have like a cover page that will have who you are and like your job title. So in a letter, I understand that your job title will be somewhere in the closing, like by your signature. But would it be beneficial in any way to sort of introduce yourself in the introduction so that the chairman knows why you are bringing up this whole global warming thing and why he should care about hearing about this from you specifically?
Absolutely. So I was still chatting to, referencing Samanga's opening, and you raise a very important point. I've seen that your hand is raised, Bless. I'll get to you in a minute. You need to say who you are up front, because this person doesn't know who you are, and you want them to carry on reading. And it's actually quite good that you can say that you're given your portfolio by the question, so you reiterate that, and then you can also say to what extent, I mean, you bring in the fact that being an employee of the company has given you the opportunity to go through a number of to this presentation, and you know, and then you bring in the rest that you'd like to share, etc. So that's great, Sinazo. You would do that. You would definitely want them to.
I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that.
It's a nice idea. It's actually appropriate, because you, as Sinazo pointed out, you want the reader to be sure who you are, and it's courteous, especially since they might not have met before. However, in these particular circumstances, some people answered by saying, by being more familiar, by knowing the chairperson, and they might have added something about the latest, in your latest shareholders meeting or whatever, or refer to some sort of more public event where they spoke about climate change, or hinted at the fact that of risk associated with that. So you could, adding that little bit to help you into it with an unsolicited letter or email is useful, because then you actually create the relationship for the examiner. You're not going to go overboard with that, though, please. You're not going to go overboard. It's just almost like an access point. But introducing yourself is just as good. And definitely, you know, saying that you'd like to share this. So those were lovely. So thank you very much. So I'm hoping that the rest of you had a measure of some of that in there. It was a tricky one. And in this, an unsolicited correspondence or document will always require you to spend more time on that opening. But you don't want to spend too much time on it, okay? So in planning, you may rather give more time to, I mean, you might give precedence to the other issues like the clustering of the information, etc. And then once you are really immersed in the whole thing, you can go back to the opening that you had drafted and to see whether in fact it is okay. Very importantly, don't forget to go back though, because too often you get trapped by the technicalities and making sure you're giving all that information back, and then your tone changes. So you have to make sure that these two ends, these bookends, the start and the close, are aligned, okay? But aligned appropriately. So yeah. Somebody else had their hand up a minute ago. Any question there?
That was me, Billy. I think you've already addressed the question I had. Yeah, so yeah, you already addressed the question I had.
Okay,
so it's all-
Godfrey. All right, okay. So, good, I'm glad. The club, yes, Jacob.
I have a question too. My question is, when should we acknowledge the person that we are writing to? Is it only in correspondences or just like all the time?
When we say acknowledge, we acknowledge the pretext for writing this. So in the previous question, we needed to acknowledge your colleague's concerns, and you needed to also acknowledge the letter, the email or the query. In this instance, there was nothing, so we wouldn't acknowledge that. But we could bring in a form of acknowledgement when we say, as the chairperson. That is a form of acknowledgement. As the chairperson of the company, I would like you to consider, and then you go, this doesn't have to come in straight away. It can come in somewhere else. In this particular letter, it might have been more appropriate to put it near the end, because you've given the argument for why the company should take this more seriously and where they could make some changes. So as the chairperson, employees and shareholders look to you for guidance on this big issue that is affecting us all. So you could put it that way. And in saying that, you already sort of placing the responsibility, and it's a form of persuasion, in the hands of that of the chairperson. Do you see that, Jacob?
Yes.
Okay, great. Palesa, you had your hand up? Yes.
So Billy, with the first question, with the first time around, you did answer my question. So it was mostly in terms of trying to what sets the tone, like the other Palesa mentioned earlier, because I found this one a lot more difficult for me, because when I read the question itself, it created a separation between me as an actuary within the company and the chairperson. So that to me already says this person does not know me. So going into the email, going into the letter and actually starting it off, am I someone completely new? And am I being jolly? Do we know each other? Do we not know each other? So how do we see such things? Because to me, it created a separation. The fact that it just said you're an actuary within the company, and then at the end, and it showcased how big this company is, because we deal with clients in the financial services industry, and then on top of that, it just said chairman of the board. Chairman of the board, that to me creates a separation. So I don't have leeway to sort of be too friendly because this is the chairman. So
yeah, well, you can make that decision because they didn't tell you how familiar you would be with it. But so I'm just saying that some people, some chairpersons, they refer to themselves in the first person. In South African businesses, often you will find that. You'll find even on interviews on radio or television, then they don't use the formal parliamentary addressing. They'll go straight to the first name, so that happens quite a bit. So I think what you need to do is you need to have a balance. Okay, you need to be not arrogant and consider yourself the top actuary or the head of all the actuaries, or there's a head actuary in most typical traditional insurance. But the fact that you have the knowledge gives you the right to address this to the chairperson. And also, if this has been given to you, then you can accept that your company is based on open door policy, perhaps, or they have a code of conduct which encourages employees to contribute thought. And thought leadership is a big thing, and it comes through action as well. So you wouldn't necessarily give first name terms. That would be very tricky to do, but you would acknowledge the position as the chair, and you would say, as an actuary dealing with risk constantly and how that impacts both on the lives of people and on our bottom line. I recently had the privilege of going to a presentation on climate change, and I want to share with you the main points from that presentation, and perhaps bring you to the point of introducing ways and means that our company can lead the industry by being more conscious of the impact of our actions. That type of thing, do you see? So it's harder to write, it's easier to say, okay? But perhaps you can make as if you're saying it, if this is a possible technique. I find that that's useful. When I have to write something that I'm finding very awkward, I imagine talking to that person, and then I write as if I'm talking, and I take from that. Okay, so try that, Palesa, and it's better always to take a middle road. You don't want to be, you don't want to come across as, too submissive in this one, or too sort of, how can I say, self-effacing, which means that you are extremely humble. You're humble, yes, in the sense that you recognize that it's something you can do, but you not too much of that. Okay, you're not being too sort of, as I said, self-effacing. I'm just a little actuary that works in the company. No, take up your position. I think the examiner was wanting you to use the fact that with your skills, you understand the risk that faces the company and others much more clearly, and then most maybe. Okay, Palesa, so it's a through experience. That's why I say do more and more questions. Godfrey, yes, you have your hand up.
Yes, Billy, just a quick question. Because I think what I found to be the biggest challenge as well is that in a task where you have to respond with a set number of words, right? The challenge sometimes, I was looking at my opening and I'm like, I've only included probably two lines of my own words, because the challenge was, it's very important to mention from the opening. That's how I felt, that you did attend the global warming presentation, and then mentioning that's exactly copying and pasting from what the question said. And it was worth also saying that we've put together some suggestions which comes directly from what the question says, and that probably takes about 20 words already. So should we shy away from using the same words that we used, even if I was not sure how to handle that one? I don't know if you get my question. So when I was looking at my opening, and yeah, I felt like it feels like you just copied and pasted what the question said and included 1 or 2 lines. And but also there was a need for me to mention exactly what I was going to do, because the question instructed me to do that, right? So, yeah.
I do understand the challenge completely. So where we find it, where we don't notice if you've cut and paste, is if you've shown insight. So it's not just the full sentence cut and pasted. You have used it you've added it to what you said about what you had done. You'd gone to the presentation, you cut and pasted that presentation title or whatever it is. You have to do that. And yes, you must meet the requirements of the notes. So it is difficult. That's why I say we're going to, on the communication side, we're going to assess whether you used what was there to actually structure and fashion and sculpt your response. So it's you don't want to just cut and paste. And this was a tricky question because there was so much information, particularly when it came to what the company can do. So there already the examiner had laid it out in categories, what the company can do, what people can do, and they put it into bullet form, etc. So what we generally like to see is that you have taken that information and you have the information is the same, but maybe your presentation is slightly different. So you could have said it differently. You could have said that maybe you didn't use bullet points, for example, or maybe you had you used it in your argument about what the company could do. So you took that information and put it into your argument. But it was difficult to actually not to stay away from what was given. And you do have to use that information. Please don't think that I can't use this information because I'll be copying and pasting. Rather, if the choice if the choice comes down to it, then cut it and paste. Understand? Because you will get the mark if you have got the technical information. You will get fewer marks from the communication side if it's simply a cut and paste. You'll get better marks if you have incorporated phrases or what have you that you have made your own by bringing it into your sentence structure. Does that answer your question, Godfrey?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, good. Because I have seen some very interesting answers over the years where people have been terribly concerned about plagiarism or cutting and pasting far too much and so on, and then they've lost marks because they haven't given equal weighting to all the aspects. That's why I say, for your own sense of organization in your mind, what 3 or 4 categories or subsets or sets of information can you provide in this question? Okay, so then let's go to, because we only have a few more minutes, I would like to go to the close. Okay, I'd like to see a close. Antonio, did you manage to close this one? Because you arrived late, so you probably didn't.
No, I didn't manage.
No, okay. Caitlin, did you have? There might be someone in this group today who actually wrote this exam, because it was 2018, I think. Okay, so who got through? Give me just one sentence which you feel was persuasive in your close.
May I go for it?
Yes, okay, go for it, Jumane.
Right, so this is what I said in my closing. In closing, I would suggest that this issue of global warming be taken just as seriously as any other in our priority list. This letter has attempted to bring to light how our firm and our people are not immune to the consequences of indifference. And then I said, I trust that you will give these thoughts serious consideration. Please do contact me should you have any further questions.
Wow, that was really strong, yeah. And you know, given the situation, as we all know it, since then, it's been a few years since this was written. Since then, I would take it. I would accept that. I would rather say, I would rather reiterate and say, please consider seriously, than you should. When we say you should, it's very close to an imperative. You should see the doctor because you've got a cough, for example. But in this case, depending on the whole letter, it might have been fine. And also considering the fact that everybody's considering ESG now, even the indices that, I mean, that for a number of years now, we've had it as an index on stock exchanges, but now it's becoming less and less of a choice and more of a compulsion. So I would go with, I would probably accept what you've got there, Tumeleng, but I just want to say, did you say you should, or did you say What was the
No,
exact?
no. So I said, I trust that you will give these thoughts serious consideration. And then I
Yes.
said, please do contact me should you have any further questions.
Okay, you didn't say you should in the first line of your close.
No, I just said I would suggest that this issue of global warming be taken just as seriously as any other.
Very nice. Yeah. I mean, it is important. It's only even recently, for example, that cyber risk has become, let's say, one of the additional pillars that a board would have to consider, and actually have somebody on the board who can speak to that. So it's a similar thing. It's becoming, it's now imminent. It's actually here with us, and we're seeing the issues all the time. So great. That was great. I thought that was good, Timolang. And there you can see were the words, all right, of persuasion coming in. Okay, so it's now 12. Yeah, another question, Timolang, or are you fine?
No, I was just saying thank you for the feedback.
I think you're speaking. We've got luckily a few voices today speaking on behalf of everybody. It's not always easy to speak and share in such a forum. However, the next question we do not have time for. It's a fun question though, so I'm going to ask you, not, you can do it, but I'm going to actually put it in the as one of the activities to be done on the site, on the communication site that you all have access to. So I suggest, first of all, you read the section on fact sheets and brochures, that lesson. You do the short exercise that's there. It's a quiz. It comes in a quiz format. And I'm also going to load this as a subsequent exercise, a quiz. And then you can submit it. Oh, Danya's got a very good question here. She says, hi, Billy. Hi, Danya. Nice to have you with us. Considering the relationship with the chairman, should we sign off the letter with yours sincerely? Okay, so this is interesting. Closing of letters is, if you know the person and you've got the name, is yours sincerely, or otherwise, nowadays, if it's a client that you've had a long relationship with, you can have kind regards or best wishes. In this case, I think yours sincerely is fine. You've actually put something out there for the chairperson to be accountable to. So I think yours sincerely hits the appropriate tone. So I would say so. But if you started with his first name, because you knew him or what have you, or her, then it's different. Then you might go to kind regards. But I do think yours sincerely, for me, works that way. And I think the other communication markers would accept that too. Definitely, they would. How's that? Okay. Great. So now the third question. Okay, there's another hand raised. Yes, Palesa?
Yes, Billy. So you mentioned in this day and age that we use kind regards, which is more appropriate if you don't know the name of the person you're writing to.
No. If you don't know the name of the person that you're writing to, then you would say, dear chairperson, right?
Yes.
And that would not be appropriate in this instance.
Okay.
Because you need to make up a name for this chairperson. Because if you consider that you do not know the name of this chairperson and you want this chairperson to make some changes, then that means you haven't done all your research. Okay, so it would be, even though you think you might be giving more respect by saying, dear Mr. Chairperson or dear Chairman, it's not protocol, and it's only protocol if you're completely foreign, and also maybe you are sitting in that very formal framework of Mr. Chairman, Miss Chairman, or Miss Chairperson, or what have you. And that's business is more relaxed than that. right? So it would be the name. Dear Mr. Buffett, okay? Not going to go Dear Warren, but you're going to say Dear Mr. Buffett. And so that in this case, if it was different entirely and you didn't know the name, and it was acceptable that you didn't know the name because you couldn't find the name out, then you would write yours faithfully at the end. Yours faithfully is always for a completely unknown. So it could be committee members, for example, of a group. Okay, then it's yours faithfully. But only if you know the name, then it becomes yours sincerely in a letter. In an email, we are very used to kind regards or regards. Okay. Kind regards first. If you go regards, then it's less formal again. And it's good that you asked this question, because a lot of us might have forgotten about this, and I certainly forgot to mention this important fact. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, how's that, everyone? There's something, I've gone a bit blurry in my video because my camera does that sometimes. I think might be also connection. So I'll switch it off. But what we're going to do with the last question is, as I've said, I am going to take it and put it as part of, at the end of that lesson on fact sheets and brochures and leaflets, because this is a leaflet. Okay, and that will mean that you can do it there and or whenever you want to do it. But there are a lot of people who are not here today, and then they can do it there as well. So if you have access to Teams, you can always send me a query through Teams, because my Teams is on, like my email is on, but somehow I find it easier to respond in a Teams. It's less formal, and there are those emojis and so on, and yeah, but you can do either way. So if any question comes up, then you can do it. And ideally, if you can go into, yeah, I will try and get other people to see that question that you ask so that they can benefit from it as well. Like a forum, but we don't really have a chat room. I created the Teams group, but it appears that not everybody got access to it. I just want to quickly show you what that looks like. So where am I here? So can you see this? This is where we are. And this is the team, and you're all members of this team. So if I go here and I say manage team, and I see members and guests, then you're all here. Do you see? And so it should be possible for you to write here if you want to in the chat, which is what we're in at the moment. There says new conversation, but otherwise you use this, which is the general chat, but I only see your question and you see my answer. It's probably better for that if you would like it to remain private. That's also fine. Okay, so you're welcome to do that. So that's where we are there, and then, okay. All right, everybody. I know, Antonio, you arrived late, but I would love for you to do the first question as well, because you probably haven't seen that question, and it would be a good exercise for you. So I will send, you've got it, all right? And for those of you who struggle to plan your answers, struggle to stay on track with your, in the exam itself, and for those of you who've never written this exam, please use that framework from today, and I will load this slide presentation so that you can also see it to our communication site. Please use it as a guideline for yourself. You have to be incredibly disciplined. A lot of first-timers spend far too much time on one of the questions and lose out on making marks or getting marks for the second. Now remember, they're both equally weighted. So it might go against the grain to do the question where you know you can bag the points first, but I think you should, when you're practicing, you should try that, because that is what you do with your other exams, and that is what gets you through. And it doesn't make sense that you should not bag those points first, so that you've got more time for the other question. Okay, so think about that. Okay, everybody, I'm going to say goodbye now, and you know that you can connect whenever you feel the need, and we'll take it from there. The 24th, please register for that. Only 2 people had registered for that session yesterday, and it's going to be to your benefit, because there, on the technical side, there are lots of things that you can gain from the technical feedback. And on the communication side, for that 2020 exam, there's also a fair amount, which you can take with you. You can see it as having written the exam, doing the attempt of it now, before that workshop. Okay, so please try that. Okay.
Sorry, just one last question on that. Would you please tell us how do you register for that again?
Okay, so this is how you do it. It will come. You remember, but it should be on the ASA calendar as a sessional coming up. If you don't know, right, how to do this, Cody Arnold is the person to actually connect with, and his email address is carnold@actuarialsociety.org.za. And I think the best way is for you to write to him and ask him if you can't see it on the ASA calendar. Because if you see it on the ASA calendar, ideally you would just double click on that, and it would take you to a place where you could register. Otherwise, you just do what you can do, and then you email Cody, and his email, as I said, is carnold, which is Carnold actually, @actuarialsociety.org.za. How's that, Itumeleng?
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Great. If it's a question of affordability, then you need to just also write to them, and maybe he can work something out. Okay? So there we go. I hope that you found the session beneficial. I'm so pleased that I forced you to exercise today. Remember that these are incredibly good exercises for you, right? It's not the exam, it's not the race, but it's preparing you to perform better in the exam or that race. Okay. Bye-bye now, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to close the recording now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank
Billy.
you. Cheers. Cheers. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Billy.
Pleasure. Pleasure, Sinaza. For now.